What's up? This is Patrick of Radicards.com, and in this video, I'll be reviewing my experience at the January 12 through 15, 2023 Dallas Card Show. Kind of late to the grind on this one, but better late than never, right? So this was one of the big shows at the Marriott Dallas Allen Hotel and Convention Center. It's the one that happens 6 times a year. It's like every other month. Super fun. So I did my usual digging. It's funny. I go to these shows now with like a smaller budget, so I'm not like spending or overspending. I come with a very specific budget, and then when I meet the budget, I don't buy anymore. That's like my rule now. And so I met my budget on Saturday night, and I went late deliberately on Sunday because I didn't want to go on Sunday because I was like, I got to my budget. I've seen everything I want to see. And so I'm just going to go and help my friend load out and call it a day. So that's kind of where we are now, at least where I am with the show. Came out with some really amazing pieces that we're going to jump into here and talk about. And the first one being this 1975 Topps Tom Seaver. So really love this card. I've always loved this card. I have a bunch of these. So funny story about this card. I used to be in Taekwondo for a long time, about 7 years at black belt in 98. And I was teaching up until I left Taekwondo in 2000 to pursue everything else in my life that was happening at the time. I had gotten sponsored skateboarding, and I just wanted to pursue other things. So I kind of left Taekwondo. I still love Taekwondo a lot, but I just don't have time for it now in my life. But I do still very much enjoy martial arts. But the reason why I'm bringing that in is because I think it was 1997. I was training, and one of my colleagues, a fellow black belt, he was a black belt. I was still like a red belt or something at the time. I told him I collected baseball cards. And he was about my age, I would say, maybe a little younger. And he said he had some vintage cards. And if I wanted them, I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love them. And I was really excited. He was like, just pick one. I have like these 5 cards. I was like, okay, I'll take the Tom Seaver. And so he gave me this Tom Seaver. My first example is 1975 Topps Tom Seaver. And I was really like, wow, amazing. My first, vintage Tom Seaver card. I had, other stuff from the 80s. I think it was like 87 Topps, which was his last Topps card. But going back into the 70s, I didn't have much at the time. And so it was really nice to get this card in hand. And I had other cards too that I acquired over the years, but this one always stuck with me for that memory. And I've bought this card a few times over the years. And this one I saw at the show and I was like, man, what great centering. This card has really, really, really nice centering. I wouldn't say it's perfect left to right, but it's pretty darn close. And so I was really happy to get this like 55-45. I mean, it's really close, maybe even closer than that. Not in the greatest of shape. I'd probably put this at a 4, maybe a 5, maybe. Probably a 4 though. But I just think the eye appeal on this card is awesome. And so I wanted to open my dialogue with this card because of its historical significance to my life as a collector. And the memories that I have of this card. Whenever I see it, I'm reminded of that time in my life with that gentleman in my Taekwondo class who also collected. I don't remember his story. I didn't really talk to him much, but he gave me this card, and I was really stoked to get it. So there you have a little backstory, a little personal story about the 1975 Topps Tom Seaver. So that introduces the list here. The rest of this stuff is going to be in the modern block. And modern meaning like the stuff I collect modern, like 90s into early 2000s, like right in there, like my favorite stuff. So jump right into here with the more current stuff. I found this block of X-Fractors in a dollar box, believe it or not, and I remember being floored when I saw them because these cards usually don't fetch $1. They're more like $7-10 and up, depending on the player. And the guy had one more other X-Fractor, but it was some player I knew of, but I didn't collect, so I passed on it. But, this was 2 cards in a stack. I took the stack up, and I got a pretty good deal on the stack. So I equate these cards to be like 75 cents each, 80 cents, right in there. So this here is a Garrett Anderson 2003 finest uncirculated gold X Fractor to 199, and a Mark Mulder 2003 Topps Chrome uncirculated X Fractor to 50. And I was like, I can get those. Those are cards of players I recognize who either I filed in the past or I had learned about later. Mark Mulder came after I came back from my hiatus. I used to file Garrett Anderson stuff in the early to mid 90s, like 92 to like 96, 7, right in there, 98. That was like the time where I had a Garrett Anderson section in my A binder. I don't file him anymore. He was one of those players whose section got retired and put in the teams box. So all of his stuff is found in the Angels block or whatever other team he played for. He played for another team later in his career, but I always will remember him as an Angel. And so these, I'm really glad to get these. These are great to have. Really great price. So with stuff like this, I leave them intact in the actual cases. They just remain in the cases. And I have a space in a box where I put like this kind of stuff because it doesn't fit anywhere else. And I just put them in one of my fitted bags, and they just go in that box. And so really cool stuff. I like these. These are fun. Really fun ads for the cheap bargain bin stuff. I wanted to introduce the modern stuff with these two cards because they're just a great snapshot of the early 2000s. So there you have it. 2003 uncirculated X Fractors of Garrett Anderson and Mark Mulder. All right, next on the list here. This is a really great block of cards. I found these are so funny. These are 1998 EX 2001 Essential Credentials Future Ryan McGuire number to 20, and the Essential Credentials now Livan Hernandez number to like 90 something. I don't remember what it is, but it's whatever his card number is because that's how these worked. It's like the nows had the same print run as the card number, and the futures were the opposite of that. Or whatever it was, like up to the 101 cards, whatever the opposite it was for the card number would be the print run on the futures. So check this out. I was going through this guy's bargain bin. I kind of stopped and started like hustled through it. I think it was Friday, and it may have been Saturday, but whatever the case, he had like a dollar bin and then a $5 row in the bin. There were like $2 rows and then a $5 row. So I was going through the dollar rows first, and I saw the Livan in like the next block of cards, and I just pulled that out. I was like, I gotta get that. It's $1. I already have this card. Like I started working on these EX Nows, I think about 10 years ago. I have like 20 some of them, and I have the Livan, but I'm like, I'll get another one for $1. And so I was like, well, I should probably go through the $5 row as well, because these were a stack of cards I bought from the seller, and really cool stuff. I picked up a 90 Leaf Thomas in there. It was $1. I mean, it's kind of a big card for $1, I think. Good deal. It's the second one I found in a dollar bin. The first I found one in a dollar bin that was signed at a couple shows back. So funny. I talked about that actually in one of the previous reviews. But the Ryan McGuire Future to 20 was in the $5 row. And obviously these cards are worth more than what I paid for them, but they go into my teams box because I don't collect the Future run. I just collect the now run, and I already have the Livan Hernandez, so they just got relocated to my teams box because I don't collect either player, but I like the cards. So really glad to get these. These are really fun to have. I really dig these cards a lot. They're some of the most beautiful that were made in 1998. Really cool stuff. I was really glad to get these. Bargain bin. I mean, I dig around a lot, and because I know what I know what I'm looking for, and I know cards pretty well, I think. I'm able to find really interesting things, and these were at the top of the list in the premium stuff I got in bargain bins. So I paid $6 for this pair, which I thought was a really awesome deal. So you have it. This is a 1998 EX Future and Now for bargain bin finds. Ron McGuire and Livan Hernandez. All right, next on the list, this is a 1998 Bowman Chrome Golden Anniversary Refractor number to 5, Corey Koski. This was found in the dollar box, same dollar box where I found the Livan Hernandez. And I was like, I know who Corey Koski is. I don't collect him, but I'm aware of his name. I remember when he's kind of like, I mean, I've seen his name in cards over the years, and so I was like, well, I get that for $1. I mean, it's a Golden Anniversary Refractor. Again, teams box for me. And so really great card. It's number 5. And I don't see them in the wild. I think this is the first time I've seen one in the wild that's not of a star. Like I saw the Mark McGuire at one of the previous nationals. I think the guy went like something like $1,600 for it or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was exactly, but usually you see stars for this kind of thing. Commons, I just don't see them as the first one ever in the commons box. Commons box, meaning like bargain bins, $1 for this card. Of course, I'm going to grab it. Cool stuff. I don't know much about Corey Kosky's background or his playing years or whatever else. I can't really comment on the player. I just recognize the name. But this goes right into the Minnesota Twins block in my team's boxes. So really glad to get this. This is cool. This is the 1998 Bowman Chrome Golden Anniversary Refractor, number 5, Corey Kosky. All right, what's in the list here? Let me think. Next on the list. Oh, this is cool. You guys will like this one. This is 1996 Leaf Limited Lumberjacks King Griffey Jr., but this isn't just the standard. This is the Executive Master Set Edition with the quadruple X's in front of the 5,000 on the serial number. So this I paid $12 for, marked down. I think the guy wanted like $25, and I got it for half price. But I tried to haggle him even further because I bought some amount of cards from him on the way out one night. I think I bought those on, I think it was Friday night when I was walking out. I saw him and I went through whatever he had. He had some really cool stuff. I bought a couple of really nice, fun promos from his boxes. It was like a Don Mattingly, a Cal Ripken, just some other things of Jeff Bagwell, just guys I like from that era. And I went through the Griffies and saw this, and I was like, well, great, I'll grab that. But this is cool. I like this. This is fun. This is the 1996 Leaf Limited Lumberjacks Executive Master Set Edition, King Griffey Jr. Really awesome stuff. I'm really glad to get this. Fun card to have in the collection. This goes right in my Griffey row. He's actually, my Griffey collection is more than a whole row of a 3,200 count box. It's like a row and a quarter of a row because I've kept all of his stuff over the years, and I always liked Griffey. He's a favorite. All right, moving on. This is the 1997 Donruss Limited Exposure, Gary Sheffield. Now, if you don't know these cards, they came in like a standard stock chrome that's available. And then there's the Exposure, which are refractors. And they have a print run of a 40 that's unstated on the card, but it's known as that's the print run. Now, these are hard to get. These are one of those sets that kind of didn't really make it into like mainstream popularity. It's just one of those sets that you know or you don't know that these are rare. I found these in a box from a gentleman who I met in 2016, and he was actually set up at a card show in Albuquerque where I used to live. Now he sets up in Texas, and sometimes he goes back to the Albuquerque shows. So it's kind of fun that I have this like relationship with this gentleman that I met initially in New Mexico where I used to live. And he had a really nice like discount box at this show. And so I went through it and I picked out stuff, I think $50 worth of cards. And this was in there with some other pieces that I grabbed that were really nice. And he was like, it's so cool to have you go through my boxes. I was like, yeah, man, thanks. Of course, I'm going to go through. I see something I like. I'm going to go check it out. So I grabbed this and some other things, and he worked with me on the deal. And it was a good purchase, and I was happy to get this in the collection. He had a Randy Johnson, the non-exposure, and it was damaged, and he just threw it in. I know there was like a crease ripple on like the front of the card. So I have that too, but that was just kind of throw in. I always like Randy Johnson. But anyway, this is cool. This is the 1997 Donruss Limited Exposure to 40, Gary Sheffield. Really like these cards. Now, something about these cards you should notice, they're commonly found with refractor lines. So if you find one without, that's like surprisingly rare. They usually have lines. You can see this one. There's a line kind of down by his knees, like just below his knees there. I don't mind it. I'm okay with that. My Frank Thomas has refractor line in it too. So I had to just accept that later when I realized that the refractor line was kind of a common issue with these cards. Anyway, moving on. I just want to share that with you. That's a great card to have. I like this. I always liked Gary Sheffield. This next one here is a 2003 Topps Pristine Gold Refractor to 69 Carl Yastrzemski. This was in the same box as the Sheffield. This was purchased with the same block. Glad to get this. It's funny. When I saw this, I almost didn't buy it. I was like, well, it's gold refractor. I don't see those too frequently. It's Carl Yastrzemski. Who doesn't love Carl Yastrzemski? So grab that. I don't have a vintage modern section for modern cards of retired players. And I don't have a Carl Yastrzemski section for the same reason I don't have a Lou Brock section or a Hank Aaron section or a Babe Ruth section. Because I don't have much of their playing year stuff, if any at all, depending on the player. And so, I wouldn't really put together a section for a player if all of his cards consist of commemorative post-career stuff. So all of this guy's stuff goes into the Boston Red Sox section. Ruth's stuff goes into the Yankees or Boston Red Sox section because it's all that kind of stuff. And so I've thought about it. I've thought about putting together player lot sections for these guys, but I don't think I'm ever going to commit to it because it'll just consist of post-career commemorative whatever. I don't think I'll be acquiring too much of that stuff. There are instances like this where it's like an era-specific insert from a year that's in a block of years of stuff I'm partial to, like 90s, early 2000s. I just love that era so much. And so this makes more sense. Do I go out and actively seek out Carl Yastrzemski stuff? Probably not. But I would do it for Mike Piazza or Jeff Bagwell or, Mo Vaughn or somebody I collect when I was younger. Greg Maddux, obviously Frank Thomas, but that's kind of goes without saying. But I just think that the designs of these Topps Pristine gold refractors are awesome. You got the decal edge, you got the etched design around Yastrzemski's name and the team name, and the design is pretty cool and they shine really well. It's just a great looking card. So when I saw this, I was like, I should probably get that. I don't want to regret not getting it. I don't want to think, man, there are a couple of times I've been to shows and after the show ended, I was like, man, I should have got that one card. In fact, when I was at the 2019 National, I reached out to one of the dealers and asked him if he knew of the dealer who was sitting next to him because he had a box of stuff I had put back. And I was like, man, can you see if you can grab that stuff for me? So I reached out to the dealer and said, hey, here are the cards. Can you check them out? And he's like, hey, we sold out all that stuff to this dealer. Call them. And I was like, oh, I know the guy who runs that. So I called that guy and said, hey, can you see if you can locate these cards? He's like, yeah, we don't really bother with those insert-y type whatever, but keep an eye on the market. And I was like, well, that's the end of that. And I'll just take this as a learning experience and not do that again. If I'm, and I've talked about this before, if I'm kind of on the fence about something, I just go and buy it because it's better to be out a couple bucks than be out an opportunity. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. It's like, a firearm. And so this is kind of the way I see cards and buying cards at shows is if I think I might want it and it kind of fits in my collection, it's like a team's box card or it's a player box card or it fits somewhere in my collection, just get it. Especially if it's a nominal fee, $1 to $10. If it's cheap, just grab it and be done with it and walk and just deal with it later. This is also another reason why I don't investigate conditions of multiple cards when I'm at a show because time is so of the essence. So I won't sit for 20 minutes looking at conditions of between 3 different cards. I'll just buy all 3 and deal with it later when I get home. And okay, that's fine because I've saved that time for the show. I'm not saving it, but I'm utilizing it in a more efficient way. I've done this with blocks of cards. I think it was one of the shows, the National. I bought a bunch of Sparky Lyle rookie cards from 1969 Topps. Yeah, I think about 9 or a page and a half of them, 9 to 15 of them, I'd say. And I remember there were one dealer, he had a bunch of different ones, and I started looking at them for conditions. The heck with this. Just buy them all. Deal with it later. There are certain cards that I like buying more than one time, but they're to a certain price point. Once it goes beyond the price point, I walk. I'm not interested in buying it. You can have it. You can keep it. And then let me know when you want to come back to it at a time at a price point that makes sense. This is especially the case in the junk wax era because there's so many copies. So I won't pay a certain dollar fee for certain cards in that era. It becomes a little bit more lenient when I move into stuff like in the 90s and early 2000s because print runs are a little bit less, somewhat harder to find. So when I run across them, there's a little bit more standard deviation there. So I'm willing to work a little bit more to get the card in hand. But if you gouge me, I'm going to walk. And I know what gouging looks like. Like if I'm willing to pay up to 4, but I won't pay 5, and you're asking for 15, I'll be like, well, have a good day. I won't buy it. No need. There's a card that was graded once of a card I like, and I think it was like a BGS 8.5, and I already have a 9, a PSA 9. So I asked the guy, I was like, what do you want for it? And mind you, I think for the 9, I paid like something like $12 or $15 for it. I was like, what do you want for the 8.5? He's like, $40. I was like, well, I was thinking to myself, may as well be 100 because it's not a $40 card. It reminds me of the story of there was a shop in LA. I used to go in there and raid their Frank Thomas box. And one time the guy was like, why don't you just buy the whole box, $500? I was like, well, if there was $500 worth of cards in the box, we might have a conversation. But even then I wouldn't pay full price. I'd probably want it for like $400 or less. But there's like $60 worth of cards in that box. Maybe 70. But I wouldn't be able to pay you much more than that. And so it's, I because I know what stuff's worth, it's going to be hard to get me to overpay for something. There's one guy who sets up at the Dallas Card Show. I went through one section of his boxes. He has a whole walls of boxes, really cool stuff, a lot of great stuff in there. But the prices are too high. I'm not going to pay $3 for a 1993 post Jeff Bagwell card. Sorry. It's like a quarter card. Quarter. I won't even pay 50 cents for that. And so it's like when I see opportunities, some are better than others. And I just try to like take that in when I'm buying cards at shows. I try to pay close attention to as many opportunities as I can. And not all of them are going to be good opportunities. Like that guy's wall of cards, he probably has a lot of great cards in there, but I'm not going to spend 4 hours in that box to maybe buy a couple cards. If I'm going to spend 4 hours on the guy's wall of cards, I darn well better spend like 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe $100 in cards. Because I got to get my time worth out of this. There's one dealer there I go to and I'm willing to spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours because I'm going to spend like $150 with him. And so the yield, the return on what I'm going to put into my collection is going to be so much more robust. But if you're going to have me sit at your booth for 4 hours and I'm going to maybe pull out $1 card, that is a horrible use of my time. You darn well better have some pretty good stuff for me to look through. And it's because it's my time, I'm going to choose not to sit. This is kind of the one I've talked about this before, is that if I go through a box and I don't see any signs of life, I won't sit and look through anything else. Like you get one opportunity with me. You get one row. I'll go through it really fast in like 30 seconds. And if I don't see anything in there, I'm interested in it at the price point that I want, I won't even sit with and look at the rest of your stuff. I just don't do it. But there are a couple of guys I look through as much as I can, and I do it really fast. I can go through, 100,000 cards in less than an hour, like really fast. And so it's something that's like a strategy that I have. But these gentlemen, if I'm doing that 100,000 cards, those guys have built rapport with me. They know what I buy. They set stuff aside for me. They tell me, they pull me aside when they see me, like, hey, come see my booth. I've got stuff for you. So build relationships when you can at these shows. I do that. I make it a point to build relationships just in general. But at these shows, I try to make good rapport with people because it saves me time when I know where to go to get the good stuff. There are a couple of dealers at these shows that are like that. I always go to them first because they know what I buy. And then there's like a couple of dealers I haven't even looked through their boxes really at all because I've been through like one row, not my thing, and then I keep walking. Granted, I'm probably walking on some opportunities, but at the same time, like, what's my time really worth? If I'm going to spend 4 hours and I might find a card that's worth, something to my collection, does it really make sense to spend the 4 hours? Or should I spend the 4 hours going through and pulling out a yield of like $150 worth of stuff? That's a better use of my time. The thing at card shows is identifying the best use of your time. Some people like doing the pack rips and the breaks, and other people like doing they like to haggle for the high end and the showcase stuff. Some people like to open the modern boxes and scream on camera. I mean, you just got to figure out like what works for you. What's your thing? And just go there and don't worry about anything else. Like figure out what your thing is and just focus on that thing and accept that that's your thing. Don't question it. I used to question like, should I go to the National to buy junk wax? Yeah, that's what I like to buy. Buy it. So accept what you like to buy and don't worry about anybody else's like views on it. Don't worry about what other people think about it. Just accept what you like to buy and just go there and funnel out everything else. Just focus on that one thing. And there are collectors who are still trying to find their focus, and that's okay. It just means your collection is going to be a little like disjointed. Like I've talked about this before, I won't really know what you collect if I looked at your collection. It'd be just a lot of stuff. You come into my collection, everything's organized by like player boxes, organized alphabetically. Teams boxes, organized alphabetically. Of course, my Frank Thomas collection, my graded collection. Everything's in there. It's all easy to find, easy to locate. And then I have like annual boxes for stuff I like, but I don't specifically collect. Like if I find a, 76 Tops Lou Brock or something, it goes in the 76 Tops block. And if I have a 71 Tops Nolan Ryan, it goes in the 71 Tops block. It's just all stars. And it's organized penny sleeved, organized by card number, and in the 71, it's like by divider, by year. That's the way I like to organize my stuff. And if someone doesn't collect anything specific and they just collect stuff, and I go through their collection, it'll just be a mess of random whatever. I have a friend who just does one team, and so I always know what he collects. Every time I go to his place and look at his stuff, I always know exactly what he likes. And I've always liked that about him. Like he just does this team, nothing else. I like that about his collection. Another guy just does another team. I always know what he collects. So it just helps it ease. Like when I find stuff, somebody collects, I keep that in mind. A friend of mine collects a certain player who I have a section for in my collection, but I wouldn't say I PC him, but I throw his cards aside when I see him at shows that I like, and it goes in there. And so he has a more extensive high value collection. So when I see that kind of stuff at shows, I will ping him like, hey, do you want this? It's going to cost you to get it, but this is a really nice card, just to keep it in mind. Now, if you don't have a focus, I won't be able to do that. I'm not saying I will do that if you did. I'm just saying that my job is much easier when I see something a friend of mine likes, if I know what they collect. So let's say they collect Carly Yastrzemski stuff, modern, rare, and, this is something that wouldn't fit in my collection for some reason. Then I would be like, hey, dude's name, what do you think about this card? Here's the price. And if he doesn't want it, then I might buy it for myself or whatever it is. That's kind of the way I look at it. Obviously, I can't get everything at these shows, and I don't want to. I don't have the space for it. I'm really picky. I'm so picky. I'm so picky that when I go through a bin of quarter cards, I'll go through it once or twice and parse out stuff that I don't think really fits in my collection as much as the rest of the stuff. Like it all would fit. But if I can take out, $4 worth of cards, I can spend that $4 on something else that would actually fit better into my collection. That's the way I kind of tackle bargain bin stuff, is that everything gets a parse section. They're like, I'll go pull out stack, and I'll go through the stack once or twice and pull out and really parse it down to the stuff I really want in my collection. And then I'll hand that up to the dealer and be like, I'll tally it up on my phone, and I'll already have a number in mind. And be like, hey, would you take 50 for this? This evaluation is $71. Like, yeah. That's what happened with the guy with the EX Now and Future cards and the Corey Koski. Like, I had this block. It was like $71, and I offered 50 and just took it. I said, great, it's perfect. Everything. I don't remember how many cards. There were a lot. There were a lot that I just filed straight into the archive. No coverage. Just, they're good, but they're not, conversation worthy. Sometimes I'll buy something that would make for a good blog post. Like I bought a few pieces like that at the show. There was like an Archie Bradley and Austin Hayes and some other pieces that would just make good for set reviews, but they're not conversation worthy. The Archie Bradley I bought was $1 card, but it's a parallel number to 50 with a sticker auto. And I'm like, man, that's $1? Where has the market gone if that's in the dollar box. I mean, granted, you have these like rare 90s inserts in the dollar box too, but that I can understand because it's difficult to keep track of everything when you're a dealer. You're just trying to like, get it and sell it and move it out. Like, I understand that. Like, that's fine. But when I see modern, like not that old, like parallels that are low numbered and they have autographs on them or sticker autographs and they're in the dollar box of players who with notable significance, like Archie Bradley's not a common player. He's like pretty good utility. He's become really good utility. Like Dylan Bundy is this kind of a similar, like they're good dudes. They're good pitchers, but they're not mega stars, right? And so they're a little bit more affordable. But they came up to be big prospects. And so when I saw that card, I put it back and I was like, I should probably grab that. It's only $1. I'm going to get that card. But that get filed right into my Arizona Diamondbacks collection because it's just, I got like this Larry Walker card that looks like Chris Farley. I'm like, okay, that's a great Larry Walker card. I'll put that in my section. I thought about talking about that. Didn't talk about that in this review, but that's okay. Picked up like a Jeff Bagwell and Mo Vaughn sample cards that were really cool from like the prize collection run. Those are really awesome. Just a really cool stuff at this show that I got. I came up really strong at this show. I've built some really great relationships with dealers, and I always try to do that. Even with those I'm not buying from, I always try to make good build relationships with them so they know me and know what I buy. Anyway, there you have it. Those are my key pickups from the January 12 through 15, 2023 Dallas Card Show. Thanks for tuning in to Radicards TV on Radicards.com. I'm your host, Patrick Reno, and until next time, enjoy collecting. If you like this content, please subscribe. Thanks. Enjoy collecting.